So I guess we can get into the loose topic at this point.
Yeah.
We have two of them, so let's just get started on the first one, which is our favorite gaming soundtracks. Now, this is obviously going to be a very personalized topic. There's no way to say the best gaming soundtracks of all time because, of course, music is so subjective. Everybody has their own experience. Nostalgia plays a big role in this. So, Steve, let's just get started with you. What are some of your favorite gaming soundtracks of all time?
All right, so I try to spread it out, right? Because I didn't want to just think of one specific soundtrack and what music do I listen to, and luckily I've been kind of playing a lot of my older stuff lately. So one soundtrack I want to put out, just really out there, and I know I'm working on a separate video in general about it, is Super Mario World. That whole soundtrack, every stage is so iconic. I don't know, anytime I do play that game around people, most people will hum a section of it because they'll know it. They'll know the beginning opening. They'll know when I'm in a cave. They know all those, so that soundtrack in general is so good. And you've heard remixes of it, people going on YouTube and doing all these crazy things to it. And I have to stand that, even though that's pretty much my favorite game of all time, that soundtrack is also so iconic. And it's one of my favorites, especially, it's one of my favorite parts of Mario Maker 2 is going to the Super Mario World and, changing night, day, stuff like that. And I remember showing you one of the soundtracks, one of the tracks remixed when it was nighttime and stuff like that. And they add different instruments and stuff like that.
Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah.
That was Mario Maker, yeah.
Yeah, the Mario Maker. And small things in that game, when you have Yoshi and the drums start, hitting on, and I can hear it in my head right now. I'm bobbing my head to it because it's so good, because it's simple things like that when you have just a soundtrack that's so iconic after so many years. And when people think of soundtracks, they think vocal soundtracks. They think of, Sonic Adventure series that has those things.
Spoiler.
Oh, I'll get to mine. I'll leave Sonic Adventure 1 for you, don't worry. People think that. I like to think of some other stuff. That soundtrack is so iconic, and it's just one of my favorites. So going on to another favorite of mine is Sonic Adventure 2. I don't even know where to begin with Sonic Adventure 2 soundtrack. I just love everything about it. I know most of those, and you know this for a fact, that I know most of those songs word for word. I have
the Knuckles rap.
I have a CD somewhere with most of these tracks on there, and I have a playlist on Spotify that has some of them. And the Sonic series in general, from pretty much I think starting with Adventure, all had that really kind of rock, Crush 40, and Sum 41 did a couple, not Sum 41, Crush 40, and all these other guys did different remixes and stuff like that. But it's weird to think that Sonic Adventure 2 has this such a variety of it. You have the popper songs for Amy and all the the lighter team, and then you have Sonic just has kind of this more high speed rock, and then you have Shadow that has almost a fake death metal tracks and stuff like that. You got Eggman and Sonic, Eggman and Tails have that weird rap stuff, and then Knuckles really has that kind of hardcore rap. That's just a fantastic soundtrack to me. Thing I hum to it all the time, constantly especially when I'm cooking. I don't cook too much, but when I cook, that's some reason the stuff that's in my head. City Escape I listen to pretty much once a week. I don't know why, because someone somewhere will put that, and I'll have to listen to it. And it's just it's a test of time that though that game is what it is. We're here to talk about soundtracks. That soundtrack's fantastic. That's such a great mixtape. It almost does sound like a movie. Soundtrack where the things are just so wildly all over the place, so it's weird. So I love that. So my last one I had to really talk about, and luckily I found it the other day. I launched up to see if I still liked it. Was Jet Set Radio Future.
Yes.
Man, that music it fits the style so much, and hopefully I can set up so I can do a gameplay about that, because that game is just fantastic. I don't even know how to call it, that kind of skatey hip vibe that has to it with some rap. There are some more hip hop style songs in there, but the super techno-y, almost grungy, spray painty. I don't even know how to say it. Think of more like a hardcore Splatoon style soundtrack almost, in a sense.
Really urban though.
Yes, but super urban and super techno and super just hip. I use hip in quotations because I don't even know what that means. It's just so smooth, and I don't think I've ever seen a soundtrack match a game so much. than Jet Set Radio Future. Even like other rhythm-based games, things always felt awkward. But there's something about the Jet Set Radio Future soundtrack. I played more of this one than I did the first one, so I can't speak too much about the Jet Set Radio. But Jet Set Radio Future just... I don't think I've ever seen something mesh so well, where it sounds like what you would think it sounds like. From a picture and from a gameplay clip, this music sounds automatically what it feels like. It's weird that you hear what you see and you see what you hear, in a sense. So those are some of my favorite gaming ones. What did you end up having?
Yeah, so I got quite a few here. A lot of them are kind of like of this current gen that I wanted to just give a shout out. And then I have my personal list. Okay. So I just wanted to start with Sonic Adventure, which obviously I chose the first one because I know how much you love the second one. You know how much I love the first one. And they're different games in their own regard, but they're very similar in other ones. So a lot of the good things about the Sonic Adventure 2 soundtrack could be I pretty much said for the first one. I just love the versatility of it. The soundtrack's pretty much all over the place, to be honest. Like you go to Mystic Ruins and you get some kind of ambient atmospheric drum music. You go to the city and that has some kind of like pop new wave style music. You got the kind of like, underground scary music of like the Knuckles missions and stuff like that. So the soundtrack's really all over the place, and in many ways when you go back to it's kind of cringe at some points too, but at the same time like it's so endearing and so iconic, and just something that to this day like I listen to these songs and it immediately brings me back to that time. So I just wanted to give that a shout out. The second one is something that literally no one talks about, but I have to give some love to. And it's Professor Layton, and specifically Professor Layton in the Curious Village. That kind of like French-styled pop music like is so awesome. And the whole thing is very instrumental-based. And for a DS game like this, I need to give this game its credit. This game's awesome. And basically, it popped up in my head yesterday, and I actually went on YouTube immediately and fired up the OST to make sure that I'm like, am I tripping, or is the soundtrack really that good as it was when I was younger playing this game? And no, that game's awesome. Like, replaying these songs, I'm like, the amount of like care that went into the soundtrack of this game, to basically no one really talking about it anymore, is a real shame, because I think they did something pretty awesome. There. So I'd highly suggest, if you haven't heard this soundtrack before, just go to the Professor Layton and the Curious Village main theme and just listen to that. Just the main theme. Don't even worry about the rest of the soundtrack. And it'll blow your mind. It's fantastic. The second one is Crazy Taxi. Now, that has the most iconic intro song of almost any game from that generation, in my opinion. But the whole soundtrack, like another game that I'll get into, which is it's very Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3-ish in the way that it's very formative of that time and formative of my youth. And this played a major role in me really getting into pop punk, getting into alt rock, getting into that kind of skater scene and that kind of California rock scene and ska and stuff like that. My music taste was really shaped by these games that I played as a youth, between, again, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3, Crazy Taxi, and then some other ones that I'll give a shout out to, the Rock Bands, the Guitar Heroes, games like that. Yeah. That just are literally, the soundtrack is the game. So that's almost cheating in that regard. But again, these are formative games in my youth. And then I have a couple games that we both really love from this generation that I just wanted to at least mention in this conversation. First one, Tetris Effect. I mean, we all know how good that soundtrack is. I don't even need to get deep into it. There's fewer games of the modern generation that I think one thing had that care to cater it and to work it into the game experience. It's versatile. It's all over the place. It's very worldly and global. It has sounds from all over the place. It takes you to Africa, into Asia, into Europe. It's all over the place. It has EDM music. It has drum and bass type R&B, or not R&B, but hip hop styled videos. So it's a really iconic soundtrack that I just had to mention. Persona 5. I mean, fewer games are as smooth in terms of a soundtrack as Persona 5. Yeah. It has instrumental, jazz-oriented types, stylings. You really like this soundtrack too, right?
Yeah, so the Persona soundtrack, I can't believe I even spaced on that. I really fell in love with 4, and 5 soundtrack is just as good.
Absolutely.
Because as a gift, you gave me the soundtrack to Persona 4 once. And I still have it in my car.
I forgot that.
I still have it in my car. Every once in a while, I'll put it in it, and I just hear that music, and
it's just awesome.
I mean, the music's so good. Even they created the dancing games based off that music. And my favorite part of those things is shutting everything off and just kind of letting because you can pretty much just let it play and just having that soundtrack and all the remixes. And that soundtrack, I love it so much. You know, it's I think one of them is my ringtone right now. My phone's always on vibrate, but, you know, because I'm not an imbecile. But, you know, not that you're an imbecile if you have your music on, if you have your phone not on vibrate, but it's just a fantastic.
It's just not 2008 anymore. So
yeah. Ringtones.
And, I wanted to give a quick shout out. We mentioned the game earlier, Doom 2016. I mean, if you're a metal fan, there's only a couple games I think you could really latch onto having like a really good soundtrack in that regard. Doom, and then I would say probably like DMC are probably like the main examples of like games that really tap into metal in a really effective way. So I just wanted to give Doom a soundtrack. I'm a big metalcore fan, and so not too many games incorporate that into their soundtrack. So whenever someone does, got to give them a shout out. And then the last one is a game that got talked about its soundtrack a lot when it came out, but since then, not as many people have brought it up, which is Nier Automata. Mm-hmm. Man, that soundtrack, and my girlfriend's actually replaying it right now, so that's why I was reminded of it. Man, like that soundtrack's awesome. Like, again, just it's very subtle in the way you're not getting these crazy EDM style loud dubstep sounds, so it's a way more subtle kind of vibe to it, but some of like the vocal stylings and the instrumentation on it are really, really impressive, and you could tell a great deal of care went into them. So just wanted to give those a quick shout out. I know I had a lot, but there's just so many soundtracks that like I go back to on a regular basis that I just have to mention because I'll like hate myself forever if I don't.
No, yeah, for sure, and that kind of refreshes my memory because one thing I did want to mention, I can't believe I almost forgot, is so I kind of, it's hard to put it in a bracket, but I kind of wanted to mention Square Enix games in general. Yep. Final Fantasies, Kingdom Hearts, all these kind of titles that under their branch. Even if you think of a little bit what they did with the Tomb Raider games and stuff like that, they really know how to match. You know, not only, you know, I know Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts has a little bit more iconic stuff, and some of that stuff's licensed to different people and things like, especially Kingdom Hearts always uses teams up with her name's spacing on me. Simple and Clean.
Oh, the composer for her? Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, but you know, they do all these, you know, the music on Kingdom Hearts and most Final Fantasies are so iconic, and they just fit the and that's something we were able to experience again in Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I don't know if
Yoko Shimomura?
Yeah.
Just wanted to mention
yeah. You know, the composers and all these people really are able to capture. At no point did I feel like, this music doesn't fit, because especially in Final Fantasy VII Remake, they did use the original tracks as a base, and they kind of updated it, remixed it, did different things to it, and it just fits so well when like you're underground, when you're in the city, when you're this and this and this is going on. You know, there's so many iconic tracks in that. There's so many iconic tracks in Kingdom Hearts where people know the opening scene. You know, each one had their anthem. You know, their main title song. Even though Threes was a little weird with Skrillex. Was it Skrillex? Yeah, Skrillex.
Yeah, the remix of that Utada Hikaru song.
Yeah, he did that weird one.
It's interesting.
But yeah,
it's an interesting take on it. Yeah.
But Square Enix, but like I was saying, Square Enix needs a shot because, you know, that's something they do put a lot of effort, money, and research into, because those tracks are fantastic. You know, everyone knows, you know, that you know, that song that comes up anytime Sephiroth's on screen, you know, the One Wing Angel, whichever remix of it, that comes up when that violin he really hits at the beginning. It's just so intimidating, like it's fearful. That puts fear in you, especially when you realize that pretty much Sephiroth's always horrible to fight, in the sense that he's very difficult, not that he sucks. So that's another one I wanted to give them a shout out, because they deserve it. They really deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, think how many, you know, publishers can you think were able to pull off what they pulled with just menu music of like Kingdom Hearts? That one little piano song, and I forget the name of it. The name escapes me. But there's that one track that's always in the intro of Kingdom Hearts games that it's like, talk about iconic.
Dearly Beloved?
Yes,
I think is the English name for it.
I mean, just an iconic track, and then obviously Simple and Clean and Sanctuary, or Hikari and Passion, depending on what language you're talking about, are its own, you know, iconic levels. Shout out to Hikaru, who, you know, very formative in the Square scene. So shout out them.